My name's Butch. I'm alcoholic. Hi, everybody. And by God's grace in this program and strong sponsorship, I've been with you since September the 21st, 1989, and I'm very grateful for that. I want to, Wally, I'll bet yesterday morning you didn't think you'd be getting a standing ovation tonight, did you? Such is the power of Alcoholics Anonymous. Most important thing I can do is to welcome Wally and those new folks to Alcoholics Anonymous, those people here in their first year and for your first conference. Welcome. You are in a good place. My sponsor used to call these chairs healing chairs, if we deem them to be so. So welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to thank the committee for the opportunity and privilege of being here, and Bubba for asking me, and for Larry suggesting that Bubba call me. And I am honored, really, truly honored to be here. I feel humbled. There is a great many people in this room that I've known for a long time that have meant a great deal to me. And good to be back here and to see them. And my buddy Stuart and Joe, and I got to see, and Kay, and just Vinoy, and just a whole bunch. And I've made a couple new friends that will be lifelong friends. This is the only place in the world you can meet somebody for half an hour and become lifelong friends with, huh? Really and truly is. It is, it's an incredible thing. And so I'm happy to be here. Thank the people, 52 years, and just a ton of people here, old-timers. I have a deep love in my heart for the old-timers. Deep, deep love. Men and women who've been coming for 20 and 30 and 40 and 52 years, who've made sacrifices and commitments to Alcoholics Anonymous, so would be here for a guy like Wally and I. I love them from the bottom of my heart. And if you're new to Alcoholics Anonymous, I would urge you to get close to these men and women and learn from their experience, because we won't have them with us forever. My sponsor was an old-timer in Alcoholics Anonymous. Bob knew my sponsor. My sponsor came to Alcoholics Anonymous on July the 17th, 1958. And he was an active member in Alcoholics Anonymous until the day he died on June the 10th, 2004. And when I say active, I mean active, huh, Bob? He went places. He went places. And one of the great joys of my AA life, and there has been many, but one of the great joys in my AA life is he took me everywhere with him. Took me all over the country with him and stuff, and I love going with that old man. Many of the people that I'm close with and know today, long-time members and stuff, I met with that old man, and I loved him. And after I was sober for a little while and would get asked to come up to the front of one of these rooms and take part in a meeting, he knew how nervous I'd get before I get up here. And he'd sit beside me in that meeting, he'd rub my back. Aww. They cry at Al-Anon when they do that. And he'd rub my back and he'd say to me, I know it doesn't feel like it, kid, but I'm with you every step of the way. And I'd get up the front of one of these rooms and look out, and there he'd be sound asleep in his chair. We'd drive home, he'd say, that was a nice talk, Butch. Sit there. Thanks, Bobby. Thank you. My home group is the Three Legacy Group, Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm a group guy. I believe in the home group. I believe the home group is the heartbeat of AA. That's not podium banter. I believe that from the very depth of my soul. And I'm a group guy. I believe in that home group. And I used to say my group was the best group in the world. I don't say that any longer. I find it very arrogant of me. But I belong to a strong group, Alcoholics Anonymous. I belong to a group where all three legacies are in place, where it's not just about personal recovery, but where unity's there in place, where we operate under the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous, where they're not just something that's on the wall, but they're something they're taught and adhered to. I belong to a group that is united in service, and there's a service-oriented group, where it's not just the same one or two individuals constantly doing everything, but where we operate as a group, where we carry the message as a group. I belong to a group that believes that everybody that comes to our group should be made available a job to them so they can feel a part of that group, a part of Alcoholics Anonymous. I belong to a group that believes in service. I belong to a group that goes to the detox on every Monday and Thursday and makes sure that those new people are going to be at our group. Belong to a group that goes there every Tuesday night to talk to those new people about sponsorship and getting a home group and what we do and what we don't do in Alcoholics Anonymous. I belong to a group that has structure. I believe in structure. We're an undisciplined lot. I think structure is good for us. I belong to a group that starts and finishes on time. We know who's going to chair our meetings and who's going to talk there for months in advance. And we know that those new people coming are going to hear a clear message of Alcoholics Anonymous and recovery when they come into those meetings. I belong to a group that has enthusiasm. I think enthusiasm is contagious. I love enthusiasm. I love them. I love it. I know there's no such thing as a bad group, but there's some trying hard. Like a morgue, for God's sakes. Don't you love that when you walk into that home group, that buzz that's in the room, that banter, that we've had it here all weekend long, haven't we? Huh, Vinoy, don't you love that? That chatter, that laughter in there, just like being in a bar. Oh, beautiful. Everybody talking, nobody listening. Alcoholics, most self-centered people in the world. You ever tried to talk to somebody after a meeting? 10 people walk up and say, I don't mean to interrupt. Oh, yes, you do. Belong to a strong group. Belong to that. I think that enthusiasm is powerful when new people, young people come into that group where they see there's joy and happiness and more than just not drinking. And folks, I believe from the bottom of my heart, I really and truly believe, that when a guy or gal walk into an environment where all those things are in place, their chances of recovery become much greater than if they walk into a room where none of that's happening. So I am honored to be in a place, strong Alcoholics Anonymous in Dallas, Texas. You sure want to believe that. You have put on an incredible conference. Incredible conference. I want to thank the people who've given up their weekends and sat out at registration and all weekend long and did all this work on our behalf so that we could enjoy this weekend. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your service. I really and truly do. When I say that I'm happy to be here, I really am truly happy to be here. Because alcoholics don't always get where they're going. Drinking alcoholics seldom get where they're going. But sometimes even sober alcoholics don't get where they're going. I'm going to share a quick story about that for you. Let me just tell you, first of all, there was a time in my life I was not allowed in the United States of America. Let me add, nor should I have been. They said, we have enough people like you here already. We don't need to import them. So I applied to the United States Department of Justice for a waiver that would allow me to come into your great country. I have it. It's right up in my room right now, Stuart. It's a beautiful piece of paper about that big. United States Department of Justice has my name on it. Allows me to come into the USA on humanitarian grounds. I don't even know what that means. But I have that. And I don't know about any of you, but I from time to time can misplace things. So when I got that waiver, I made 25 photocopies. Just to be safe. The other thing, when I come here, they want to know where I'm going. Now, they don't want to know I'm going to Texas. They don't want to know I'm going to Dallas. They want to know precisely where I'm going. I don't know why they want to know, but they seem to want to know. So anyway, I was going to an AA thing a number of years ago in Illinois. I got up early. I like to get to the conference early to be a part of it. I don't come to the conference to talk. I come here to be a part. I come here to be a part of this thing. And I get up and I'm looking. I can't find my waiver. I said to my wife, where's my waiver? Like it's her job to know where my waiver is. She said, I don't know, Butch. It's wherever you've put it. I said, no, it's not. You've lost it. She said, get one of those photocopies and get going. You're going to miss your flight. I got the photocopy. I got all my gear. I head for Pearson International Airport. Please don't misunderstand what I'm about to say. Our Homeland Security, our Border Patrol do a wonderful job protecting our borders. God bless those men and women. But I think when they go to Border Patrol school, they teach them how not to smile. Serious people there. So anyway, I go, I get up, the young guy's out there, I give him all my stuff. He looks at the waiver, he says to me, what are you, a criminal? I said, you might have said that at one time. He says to me, this is a photocopy. I said, yes, sir, the original's at home for safekeeping. Lies just fall out of my mouth. fall out of my... I don't need to think about lying. It just comes natural, rapid fire. I need to think about truth, lying just like that. He says to me, he says, you can't travel on a photocopy. He said, you have your I-94 form. I pulled out a form. I give him the form. He says, this is the wrong form. I thought, this isn't shaping up well. He says to me, you go over there, fill out the proper form. You got to go see somebody about this waiver because you cannot travel on a photocopy. I thought, I'm not going to Illinois today. So anyway, I go over, I fill out the form, and I got one of those keen alcoholic minds that you only hear about from the alcoholic. You did not hear about keen alcoholic mind at the Al-Anon meeting this morning, did you? And I waited till his line was full, and I saw a more kind, gentle man like Bobby. I went over to his line. I go there, I give the guy all my stuff. He says, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Illinois. He says, what's your purpose of business? I said, I'm going to talk at a conference, Alcoholics Anonymous. He says to me, he says, what address are you staying at? Oh, man. I forgot to get the address. I said to him, I don't know. He said to me, you don't know where you're going? I said, no, sir, I don't. I said, but it's okay. I said, because somebody's going to pick me up at the airport and take me there. He says to me, who's picking you up? I said, I don't know. He says to me, let me get this straight. Somebody you don't know is picking you up, taking you somewhere you don't know where you're going. I said, yes, sir, that's right. He says to me, what did you say your purpose of business was again? I said, I'm going to talk at a conference, Alcoholics Anonymous. He says to me, what are you going to talk about? And before I could answer him, he holds his hand up and says, let me guess. You don't know. So I'm happy to be here tonight. On September the 21st, 1989, two men came to my mother's house practicing Alcoholics Anonymous in its purest form. In its purest form. Those two men made the effort to leave their homes, drove to my mother's house. Now that should tell you something right there, first of all, my mother's house. Huh? Somewhere every 33-year-old self-respecting alcoholic should be is with Mummy. Two men came to my mother's house practicing alcohol in its purest form. They came to my mother's house and talked to me about their drinking. They did not talk to me about my drinking. They did not tell me I shouldn't drink, I shouldn't drug, I should go to treatment. They didn't tell me nothing. Those two men came to my mother's house, talked to me about their drinking, and told me what had happened in their lives since they came to something called Alcoholics Anonymous. Would I like to go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous with them? I was a helpless, hopeless, chronic alcoholic. I'd been running the streets since I was 13 years old. And those two men came to my mother's house that night, took me to my very first meeting, Alcoholics Anonymous. Been with you ever since that night. I don't know how to explain that to you, what to tell you about that, but I'm extremely grateful for that experience. Because I know that's not everybody's experience that comes to Alcoholics Anonymous. A lot of people come to Alcoholics Anonymous, return to drinking, and come back to AA. Some people come to Alcoholics Anonymous many times, return to drinking, come back to AA. Some people come to Alcoholics Anonymous, return to drinking, and never come back to AA. But that was my experience, and I'm grateful for it. The other thing that I'm grateful for is I've liked coming here from that first night, from that very first meeting. Mike, I've loved coming. I've loved coming. I like going to meetings, conferences, assembly days, service structures. I love listening to the story of an alcoholic, and the seedier the better. And so I have no regrets since the day I come to Alcoholics Anonymous. I really don't, Stuart, have a single one other than one. I do have one regret, and that is that I didn't get to drink with some of you people. I don't know about you, but I have met some people around here I walked away from. I like done a little drink with that guy. Huh? I heard him talking about the pig, and I thought, that's my man right there. Huh? We're a cast of characters in this outfit. You couldn't make some of this stuff up that goes on around here, could you, Bobby? You really couldn't. I'll tell you, I went to an AA thing a number of years ago up in Sault Ste. Marie, way up northern Ontario on the U.S. border. And I went to that little conference. I got up Saturday morning, went out to have some breakfast. I was going to talk there that night. I picked up the local paper. I like to read about the community I've been invited to come to. Only seems fitting. And there was a little article, Corinne, on the front page of that paper. This is a true story. Well, I hope my whole story is true, but this part is for sure. There was an article on the front of that page. There was a man, they had arrested him coming across the American-Canadian border, drunk on a stolen street sweeper. Oh. And my first thought was, I like to drink with him. I was 25 years old and my wife had thrown me out of our home. And I want to tell you that I loved her as much as I was capable of loving. It's important that I say that to you, as much as I was capable of loving. I had a new address every night. I lived in the stairwells of apartment buildings on Eglinton Avenue in downtown Toronto. I just went from building to building. I had a new address each night. And at nighttime, I was under that stairwell. In the daytime, I was like a rat in a sewer, out on those streets looking to score, looking to scam, looking to rip somebody off to get the money I need to get to do the things I need to do. I hear people in AA talk about AA luggage, matching green garbage bags. I didn't have any AA luggage. Clothes on my back. Still had an ultra suede jacket though. I'm 25 years old. I'm living in stairwells. I got the clothes on my back, and nobody wants anything more to do with me. And let me add right now, nor should they. Nor should they, because alcoholics like me are takers. I'm a user and a taker. I use and take from everybody I come in contact with. Now, it doesn't always appear that way because I'm constantly seeking your approval. I'm the guy in the bar buying the drinks for everybody, passing a bag of powder around, everybody's friend, good old Butch. The only reason I ever did anything for anyone was so you'd like me. Not because I cared about you. I couldn't care less if you lived or died. It made no difference to me. I'm a taker. And let me tell you who I take from most, the people who love me, the people who care about me, because they can't stop trying. One more time, this time it's going to work. And they keep giving and giving, and I keep taking and taking, till eventually I break their hearts. And eventually those people that love me got to push me away because they can't stand to watch it any longer. And that's where I am. I'm in the East End of Toronto at night. I'm all jacked up and nowhere to go, as I said. My wife and I owned a home in what they call the beaches down near the lakefront. We had a screened-in porch and a couple of wicker couches in there. I thought, I'm going to slip in there and get a couple hours and get out before she wakes up. Well, I pass out, and I wake up to one of these. And I opened my eyes and looked, and there was that little gal that I loved. And she looked at me with disgust and pity. And she said, Butch, you're a useless piece of scum, and you'll never change. And if you cared anything about me at all, you would get up and get out of here, and please don't ever come back, because I can't stomach to look at you. And I got up and I left there, and it was a hot, hot summer day. Not as hot as Dallas, but hot. Hot. And I went down to the boardwalk, down on the lakefront. And I'm sitting down there, I'm hungover, I'm dirty, I'm dope sick, and I'm heart sick. And I walked down to that lakefront, and I'm sitting down there in that condition on a park bench. And over where you guys are, there was another park bench, and there was a little boy, 5 or 6 years old, sitting on the bench eating a popsicle. And I looked over at that little boy, and you know what I thought to myself? Wish I had a dime for a popsicle. The big shot, the dope dealer, everybody's friend, good old Butch, sitting on a park bench wishing he had a dime for a popsicle. Nobody wanting anything more to do with me. And at that moment, here was the thought that I had, as clear as I'm thinking right now. I knew at that moment that that park bench or places like it was where I was going back to every single time. I've always been a talker and a hustler. I knew I'd put a deal together. I'd come up with some cash. I always did. But I knew at that moment that that park bench and places just like it was where I was going to go back to, and I knew it beyond a shadow of a doubt. I was 25 years old. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 33. I had 8 more years on those streets. And I will not tell you a horror story tonight, because I know that if you're alcoholic like my type, you already know. It never gets better. It always gets worse. And I had 8 more years on those streets. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 33, and I joined a group. And I got a sponsor. And I did the things you guys told me to do. Forget this suggested crap. The stuff you told me to do. You know where I was a number of years ago? Rome, Italy. Rome, Italy. Standing in the Sistine Chapel, looking at the paintings of Michelangelo from hundreds of years before, my wife standing beside me, and the tears started to pour down my face. And I thought of that guy sitting on the park bench wishing he had a dime for a popsicle. Huh? It's a long way from that park bench to the Sistine Chapel in Rome. It is a long way from the people we've listened to all weekend long, from where we were to where we sit tonight. It is a long way from where you and I come from. Many of us here tonight, the dredges of society. Many of us here tonight, our own families didn't want us around any longer. Yet here we sit this weekend, members of Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon, living good, rich, full, productive lives. How do we get from where we were to where we sit this weekend? How does that happen for people like you and I? Because, Wally, it's not supposed to. But you know how it happens, don't you? And it only happens one way and only one way. And that is through the grace of God. Through a loving God that you introduced me to, through the 12 Steps Alcoholics Anonymous and a fellowship called Alcoholics Anonymous. You sure want to believe I'm grateful to be here. I could never repay you for what you've done for me. I started to drink at an early age. I hear people talk about dysfunctional families. Was my family dysfunctional? I asked my sponsor one time, I said, Bobby, you think I came from a dysfunctional family? He said, you were in it. Took me a couple of days to think about what he meant. I don't know if my family was dysfunctional, but let me just tell you, it wasn't the Cleaver residence at my home. There was lots of parties in my home, lots of drinking in my home. Always on a weekend there was a party. As a little boy, they'd let me play bartender. They'd let me take them beers and take away the empties. They'd let me have swigs. They'd say, isn't he cute? And I loved that attention. So I started to drink when I was 4 years old. Now, I wasn't a daily drinker when I was 4. My allowance wouldn't allow it. I actively sought out alcohol. I was 12 or 13 years old. I got a guy to go into a liquor store, get us a couple bottles of wine. I was going to be a wine connoisseur. 2 bottles of Old Sailor. I think that's what you call Thunderbird in your country. And I'll tell you, any wine I ever drank had a cap, not a cork. We drank that wine, got drunk and puked and passed out, and that was the end of my social drinking. All downhill from there. I don't know if you have this in Texas or not, but I hear people at home in these meetings, these discussion meetings, say things like they came to Alcoholics Anonymous hoping that Alcoholics Anonymous was going to help them become a social drinker. You hear that here? Came to Alcoholics Anonymous hoping Alcoholics Anonymous was going to help them be a social drinker. I want to tell you tonight, I didn't want to be a social drinker when I drank. I don't want to be a social drinker tonight. I don't particularly like social drinkers. I find them weird. You ever watch a social drinker drink? They let the ice melt in their glass. Sick drinking, Libby. That's alcohol abuse. You ever drink with a social drinker? It's enough to make you puke, isn't it? You're having a few scoots. You want another one? Oh, no thanks. No. Starting to feel it. I thought that's when you put it in overdrive. My wife's a social drinker. My D, she's at home right now praying for me. Or for you. But my wife, my beautiful wife, she's a social drinker. And this is just recently in our home. We have a big open concept home. And I looked over, Jan, my D was in the kitchen. She got a bottle of wine on the counter with a funnel in it. I thought, what's she doing with that funnel? So I watched her. Then she takes a glass of wine. She starts pouring it in the funnel. I said to her, what are you doing? She says to me, I put too much in the glass. Oh, jeez. I said, don't you ever do that again. I'll divorce you, social drinker. I'm a barroom drinker. I don't identify with closet alcoholics. Doesn't mean they're not alcoholic, just drank differently than me. You know, you hear those people get the bottle, go in, lock the door, put on the country western music. I don't identify. Barroom drinker. I am a barroom drinker. I love bars. I love them. I like opening the door to a bar. The smoke it billow out, the tinkle of glass, the smell of stale urine. I love them. I love them. I like neon. I like neon when I was drinking. I still like it. That's why I stay out of those casinos. They're not good for guys like me. And I got to tell you, I thank God I never tried to get sober in the United States of America. I don't know if I'd have made it. God, I love to drink in your country. I love drinking here. You got many more here, and we got them at home. Jan called it juke joints. You know those divey, scuzzy little rat hole bars? With a little neon sign out says cocktails. Oh. I went to an AA thing a number of years ago in Pennsylvania. I decided to drive. My wife's with me. I'm driving through this little town in the middle of nowhere. I'm driving down the main street, and I hammer on the brakes to my car, and I start to back my car up. My wife said to me, Butch, what are you doing? I said, I got to see this again. I'm telling you guys, there it was. This divey, scuzzy little rat hole bar had a neon sign. Said, stop for one, stay till one. Oh! If I'd have been drinking, I'd have had that tattooed on me. Absolute work of art. Anyway, I'm not going to talk any more about my drinking tonight other than to quickly share with you what drinking does for an alcoholic of my type. It is important that we talk about our drinking in Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to give those new folks a little heads up. You're going to hear some people get up to these podiums and say things like, I don't like drunkalogs. When you hear that, buckle up. You're about to listen to 50 minutes of drinking every time. It is important that we talk about our drinking in Alcoholics Anonymous for the purpose of identification. That is the greatest tool that we have in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what makes Alcoholics Anonymous work. One alcoholic identifying with another alcoholic. That's why Alcoholics Anonymous work for alcoholics, or their programs work for their problems. We have to have identification. But I've come to believe in Alcoholics Anonymous, doesn't matter if I'm drinking Dom Perignon or Aqua Shave. Doesn't matter if I'm drinking in the Fairmont Hotel or under a bridge in a box. It's what drinking does for me that's important. And that's what I quickly want to share with you, particularly with the new folks, of what drinking does for an alcoholic of my type. And the things I'm going to share with you, I didn't know this was happening. I didn't know it at the time. I saw it in inventory. I saw it as you took me back through my life and helped me see my life honestly for the very first time. But as I look back today, I remember being a young boy in school. I don't know, 10 years old, 11 years old, and I'd be in a classroom like this, and there'd be a teacher at the front of that room, and she'd ask a question. She'd start looking around the room to see who she's going to ask to answer that question. And my head would go down like this. Oh, Jesus, don't let her ask me. Because I knew if she made eye contact with me, she's going to ask me to answer that question, and I don't want to answer the question. It doesn't even matter if I know the answer to the question, I don't want to answer the question. When I went to school, we used to have to do book report. Get up in front of the whole classroom full of kids, no good. No good. I get up in the morning, I'd say, Ma, I've been puking all night, I'm sick, I can't go to school today. Please don't make me go today, Ma. Because I want to tell you that I would be absolutely terrified at the thought of getting up in front of that classroom full of kids. Every decision I made in my life was based on fear. Most of it unfounded and ungrounded, but fear. Where I go, what I do, who I hang out with is all based on a comfort level. I don't know about any of you guys, but I every now and then will get goofy. I go on about a 5-day run. I come home, Steve, after on a 5-day run, my wife would be there. I'd come into that house, I'd say, sweetheart, that's it. No more. No. I know I said this last week, but no more, never. I swear my ma's life, I'm never having another drink of whiskey as long as I live. That's Sunday. I'd wake up Monday. I'd think to myself, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that. I'd have to go to a wedding that following Saturday. You ever go to a wedding sober? That's a bad deal. That is a bad deal. I would be at that church sweating, thinking about that reception. It's going to start in 3 hours. I'm back at that reception and the dance is going to start, and I don't have anything in me. And I'm telling you something, my hands are sweaty. I got a knot in the pit of my gut. I feel awkward and out of place, and it's just horrible. And I have to do one of two things. I got to get over to that bar and get a couple drinks into me, or I got to get out of there. because I can't stand the way I feel. Every decision I make in my life is based on that fear. You want to know what kills an alcoholic like me? I don't even know I'm afraid. I think I'm afraid of nothing, and I'm afraid of everything, and I don't even know it. We talk an awful lot at these meetings. Let's discuss resentments tonight. I prefer to call it hate. Hate. I know you're not that sick in Texas, but in Canada, hate. I'm the type of alcoholic driving my car. I'm out driving my car. I'm at a red light, and I'm on the nod by now. I went the other way. I'm on the nod by now. And that guy behind me, that light would turn green, and the guy behind me lays on his horn. I almost go through the roof of my car. I want to get out of my car, go back there, open the door, drag him out by his throat, take a crowbar and crack his skull open. I know some of you spiritual giants never thought thoughts like that, but I do. I'm not talking anger management here. No. I'm talking rage. I'm talking a white rage. I'm talking the kind of rage that I don't have 10 minutes before and I don't have 10 minutes after. But I have a rage inside of me that comes out every now and then, and I can't control it. And I say things or do things to people I never wanted to say or do. And let me tell you who takes the brunt of my anger. You see, I'm a guy who's constantly seeking approval. I'm the guy who's constantly needing you liking me. So you don't display that rage there. You keep it for behind closed doors. You see, it's the people who love and care about me that take the brunt of my anger and hate. Lonely. I'm 25 years old. I'm standing at a subway platform in downtown Toronto on a Friday night. A train pulled up and the doors opened and a young couple my age got off that train holding hands. And they walked off into the night laughing and smiling. And I looked at that couple and God, I felt sad. I thought, why can't I be like those people? Why's all the trouble got to keep happening in my life? I remember walking through a nice residential area on a warm summer's night. It'd just be getting dark in that warm breeze. And I'd walk down a street and I'd see the nice homes. And I'd see the television on inside. And I'd see the families in there. And I feel like crying. Why can't I just have a nice home and a family like other people? Why's all the trouble got to keep happening in my life time and time again? From as long as I can ever remember, I was restless, irritable, and discontented. If I was at this bar, I'd say, guys, drink up, let's go over to the other bar. If we're at this party, drink up, let's go to that party. If I'm married to you, I should be married to her. Never quite right. And I don't know about you guys, I'll tell you, I get one of those double vodkas or whatever I was doing that day. It was like this. I don't know if you remember or not. I'll give you one more. Here you go. I did that in a meeting one night. 2 guys got up and left. You should see when I do that at Detox. Oh, they're on the ceiling. It's beautiful. I have 3 or 4 of those double vodkas, and I now walk into that wedding like I own the joint. And I am moving and grooving. And I'm talking to the ladies, and I'm sitting with my buddies, and we're drinking and snorting and carrying on. And at that moment, everything in my life is absolutely perfect. And the world is a much better looking place. Same wedding, same hall, same people, same music, same food, same everything. But you put 4 vodkas in me, and my perception of reality changes. And I get an immediate sense of ease and comfort. And that is why I drink whiskey, because I like the effects it produces. But I am alcoholic. I am an alcoholic. And something happens to me that only happens to 1 out of every 10 people that drink it, called the phenomenon of craving. And I'd start drinking. I'd end up drinking 60 ounces of vodka, and I'd smash up my car. I go out after work for a few beers with my buddies. I go on a 5-day bender. I get fired from my job. I tell my wife I'm going out for a loaf of bread. I run into Bob. I come home 3 months later. My wife's leaving. I'm out there drinking, partying, carrying on. I don't want to stop. I got no money, so I'm stealing yours, and now I go to jail. And what everybody focused on in my life was the crash cars, the broken marriages, lost jobs, going to jails. We looked at drinking. We never looked at alcoholism. And people told me from the time I was 18 years old, if I just quit drinking whiskey and sticking needles in my arms, I'd be okay. And there was times I wasn't drinking whiskey or sticking needles in my arms, and guess what? I wasn't okay. As a matter of fact, I'm crazier sober than I ever was when I drank. But all those well-meaning people could see was that when I drank, the trouble that followed. So naturally, they said, stop drinking. But those well-meaning people didn't understand how I feel when I'm sober. How could they know? I didn't know. I'd love to stand up here tonight and tell you I woke up one morning, HFC Finance was dying to lend me money. Work was thinking of promoting me, and my wife was sending me flowers. And I think I'll join AA today. Huh? Every now and then I hear some moron from the front of one of these rooms say things like, if you're not here for the right reasons, you might as well drink. And every now and then I'd like to get my tire iron back out. The right reasons? Did you come to Alcoholics Anonymous for the right reasons? I come to Alcoholics Anonymous because I had nowhere else to go. One more time, my back was against the wall. My boss called me into work on a Tuesday. He said, Butch, you're a hard worker. I said, well, thank you. He said, but you're not here much. Picky. He said, do you think you might have a problem with alcohol? I said, no, but I know what the problem is. He said, maybe you'd share that with me. I said, it's my health. He said, really? I said, yes. Now, granted, my poor health may have something to do with my drinking. I'm going to quit drinking. My health's going to get better and everyone's going to be okay. He said, you think you might need some help quitting drinking? I said, no, I'm just going to quit. Got up and left his office, was to find out later his wife had been a member of Alcoholics Anonymous for many years. Can you imagine the chuckle he had as I left? Huh? Oh, he's just going to quit. That was Tuesday. I woke up Thursday in another hotel room in another town drunk. I didn't keep him waiting long. And for whatever the reason, that morning I woke up, I knew the jig was up. You know when you know, Jan? And I'd used all the lies. Alcoholics are liars. I don't know what that's about. I will lie when the truth will serve me better. Real pathological liar. I'm the type of alcoholic that goes out and plays golf all by himself and cheats on the scorecard. I do. That's not the best part. At the end, I look at the card and go, good game, Butch, good game. So I've used all the lies. I know I'm in trouble. I got to come up with something good. I had a few tequilas. I turned my mind to it, and I thought, I know what I'll tell them. I'm alcoholic, and I'm going to go to AA. And that's how I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. And for anybody here tonight who's new, we couldn't care less why you're here. We couldn't care less why you're here. We're just glad to see you. And maybe, just maybe, by the grace of God, something someone will say, something you'll hear, something you'll read, and the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous can happen in your life. And you can go on to live a happy and useful life like so many men and women here have been able to do. Just keep coming. Just keep coming. And as I said in the beginning, I've been a blessed man since the day I come to Alcoholics Anonymous. Blessed man. Deep love in my heart for the old-timers. Deep love. Many of them in this room tonight. I've heard people in Alcoholics Anonymous say you should never put people on pedestals. Well, you do what you need to do. But let me tell you something. I have some people on pedestals. Giants in our programs, both of them. Lots of them right here tonight, this weekend. Never for a moment have I lost sight of their humanities. The greatest gift my sponsor, Bobby Dobson, ever did, the greatest gift that old man ever gave me, it wasn't some profound thing he pulled out of the book, some divine spiritual wisdom he laid on me. The greatest gift my sponsor ever gave me was he allowed me to see his warts. He allowed me to see him get afraid. He allowed me to see him get angry. He allowed me to see him get selfish. He allowed me to see him get lustful. He allowed me to see all of him. Because if he hadn't, and you don't continue to, I will never measure up. We are much more brothers and sisters in our defects than we are in our virtues, aren't we? And I had some wonderful people come into my life, none more than my own sponsor. I've heard people in Alcoholics Anonymous say, if you like your sponsor, you have the wrong sponsor. I hear that and I know I'm listening to an idiot. Idiot. I didn't like my sponsor. I love my sponsor. You see, you were the very first people who helped me understand what my problem was. Because when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't have a clue. I don't know about any of you, but when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I had no idea what was wrong with me. Now, I had been told what was wrong with me. A lot of people, my wife told me what was wrong with me. Judges told me what was wrong with me. Psychiatrists, police, I'd heard all my life, Butch, just quit drinking. You were the first people that said, kid, drinking's not your problem. It's your solution. How you feel when you're sober is your problem. I am restless, irritable, and discontent. And I have to drink again. You see, I don't have a choice whether I drink or not. That's what makes me alcoholic. That is the difference between me and the hard drinker. I have lost the power in choice. An alcoholic of my type, not drinking and not treating alcoholism, and sitting in AA meetings does not treat alcoholism. That's the great myth that kills many alcoholics. The meetings are where the solution is. The meetings are where the fellowship is. The 12 Steps Alcoholics Anonymous treat alcoholism. And an alcoholic of my type, not drinking and not treating that alcoholism, sober, will get so restless, irritable, and discontent that I have to do one of two things. I don't have a choice. I have to do one or the other. Either drink again or blow my brains out. Most of us drink again. But we all know someone who's paid the supreme price, don't we? Didn't have a clue. Didn't have a clue. You told me that selfishness and self-centeredness was the root of my troubles. I didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous and do an inventory and go, my, you haven't been a very nice boy. I did not need to do an inventory to find out I was a lying, cheating thief. I knew that. But I had no idea of the depth of my self-centeredness, no idea of the depth of my selfishness and how self-centeredness and self manifests in my life in different ways. I didn't have a clue. As a matter of fact, if you'd have asked me the day I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, Butch, what kind of a guy are you? You know what I'd have said to you? I'd have said, I'm a pretty good guy. As a matter of fact, I'm a fine man. And you could have hooked me up to a lie detector test and asked me that question, and that needle would not budge because I believe that. Let me tell you why I believe that. You see, I always judged myself by my intentions. You see, my intentions were always good. Unfortunately, the world judges us by our actions. And my actions and intentions never lined up. Selfishness and self-centeredness, the root of my troubles. And from my self-centeredness comes 100 forms of fear and all my resentments, but all based in self. And you told me that I had to be rid of that or else it would kill me. And there seems no way of doing it without God's help. And you told me that is what the program of Alcoholics Anonymous was for. That's what these steps were to do. A series of actions that I would take, principles that I would start to live, that would allow me to find a power greater than myself that would solve my problem. Didn't have a clue. I thank God for that sponsorship. I thank God for that direction. You told me that Alcoholics Anonymous is a program of action. It's a program of change. And the changes start small, and they start to grow. And you said they start small. We want you to start doing little things, Butch. They said to me, we want you to come to the meeting early. Go to the washroom, get your coffee, sit down, and be quiet. Maybe you don't want to listen to what's going on, but maybe that couple sitting there would like to. And for once in your life, think of someone else other than yourself. Oh, it was true. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I had a sewer for a mouth. I'd been running the streets since I was 13 years old. I didn't know any other way to talk. And nobody embarrassed me in an AA meeting. Nobody humiliated me or centered me out. But you took me aside after the meeting with kindness and love and care. And you said to me, kid, this isn't some juke joint bar room you're sitting in now. This is Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon. And we don't use that filthy language in AA. Maybe that language doesn't bother you, but it might bother that gentleman sitting there. And for once in your life, think of someone else other than yourself. Oh, it was true. And the changes started small. You taught me what it meant to become a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am a guy who believes in our traditions and tries to live my life under those traditions. As a matter of fact, the traditions are as much a part of my life and growth as the steps are. And I know that our traditions that you're a member when you say you're a member. But for me personally, just saying I'm a member doesn't make me a member. I think there's some conditions that are to be fulfilled to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. You taught me what it meant to be a member of a home group, an active participating member. Not just somebody who's in there sucking everything I can out of it constantly, but starting to give back and be a part of. You taught me to become an informed member of Alcoholics Anonymous so that I could go to my business meetings and make a decision on informed. I just don't put my hand up because Bobby puts his hand up. You encourage me to read of our history. You encourage me to read AA Comes of Age, Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers. Pass it on. You said if you're going to spend your life in Alcoholics Anonymous, would you not like to know where we came from? Would you not like to know what was done on our behalf so we could have this beautiful weekend in Dallas? And you gave me that foundation in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm so very grateful. And I thank you for taking me through this process. We're not going to talk about that tonight. We won't have time. But I thank God for that direction. I think one of the greatest disservices we do to new people is give them a book and say, here, go do this. And we kill them. We kill them. You see, I suffer from an illness of perception. I, at times, cannot differentiate the truth from the false, drunk or sober. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know you'll be happy to do so. But I think it says it in step 10 that by now, sanity will have returned. That infers that up until that point, I am operating from an insane position. I need your direction. I need your guidance. I need somebody who's walked this road before me to show me what it is I need to do. And I thank God. And you took me through the inventory process. And you took me through the amends process, and a freeing thing. An incredibly freeing experience for a guy who has been wrapped in the bondage of self all his life. All his life. I don't know about any of you here, but I'm going to tell you from the time I can ever remember my entire life, for a long time in Alcoholics Anonymous, and still today if I'm not in fit spiritual condition, the first thing I do of every person I'd ever met, the first thing I do is I size myself up the minute I meet you. And I am always better than or less than, but never the same as. Never the same as. And that amends process allowed me to get free. Allowed me to become a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. No better than, no less than. One of God's kids. No better than, no less than. That is a freeing process for a guy who spent every moment of his waking day constantly in one fashion or another seeking your approval. Everything that I do, where I go, how I talk, how I dress, what I do, is constantly in mind of what you're thinking of me. That is tiring stuff, let me tell you. You will need a double whiskey living a life like that. And you introduced me to a loving God. To a loving God. If you'd have asked me the day I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, do you believe in God? I would have said yes. I was never a disbeliever. It had as much meaning in my life as the price of coffee beans in Brazil, but I wasn't a disbeliever. And my idea of God, Chuck Chamberlain, Mike was talking about last night, God, I'd love to have met him, but I love when I get to be around people that knew him and ask about him and talk about him, but I'd listen to him. And Chuck used to say that we have one problem and only one problem. And from that one problem comes all other problems, but we just have the one problem. And that is a conscious separation from God. You see, my idea of God was a guy way up there in the sky with long hair and a beard and a big stick. Charlton Heston. Huh? And if you were good, good things happen. And if you were bad, bad things happen. Huh? Well, if God's way up there and I'm down here, have you ever heard more of a conscious separation in your life? You were the first people that said to me, deep down inside of every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. And in the final analysis, it is only there that he may be found. Huh? And that the great reality is our Creator has entered our hearts and lives in a way that is indeed miraculous. You've introduced me to a loving God. You've introduced me to that. We talk a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous, don't we, about Bill's experience, that bright light experience. We'll often hear people talk about, I didn't have the Bill Wilson experience of bright lights and all that. And I don't know this for sure, but Bill was an alcoholic. And I sometimes wonder if the more he told the story, the brighter that light got. He was a wordsmith, wasn't he? It was as though the room lit up. It felt as a warm breeze through. I think, fellow alcoholics, I think that most of us here tonight, and if you haven't, I pray God that you stay till you do. But I think most of us here have had that experience. You know, when you're sitting in a meeting someday, and all of a sudden you hear something. Or I'm driving down that road to the airport, I stick a little Leonard Skinner in, a little free bird. And I drive down that road. And our eyes fill up with tears. And we know. And we know. And we become conscious of the presence of God. And that power becomes real. That power becomes real. There is a big difference between believing and experiencing. A big difference between believing and being connected to. I can go and talk to all kinds of alcoholics and treatment centers, detox centers, and AA meetings and say, do you believe? And most of them will say, yes, they believe. And many of them will be drunk next week. There is a big difference between believing and being connected to that power. And it is through the 12 Steps Alcoholics Anonymous and watching you and listening to your stories. That's why we tell our stories in AA, in our own language, from our own point of view of how we were able to form a relationship with God. And you introduced me to a loving God that is real and personal in my life, in every area, in my business, in my family, in my homes. I thank God for that. And today it is the great reality of my life. And the great paradox, Alcoholics Anonymous, we want to keep it, we got to give it away. Huh? Nothing ensures us immunity from drinking like intensive work with other alcoholics. When all else fails, this works. The occasional good deed is not enough. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depends upon our constant thought of others. Unless I continue to enlarge and perfect my spiritual life through unselfish acts and helping others, I will surely drink when we hit those certain low spots. If you have been fortunate enough to come to Alcoholics Anonymous and stay and you're sober 2 or 3 or 4 years and jobs have been going good and new marriage and everything's going wonderful, buckle up. Buckle up. Life will happen. Life will happen. Huh? We've been richly blessed, haven't we? Huh? We've listened to it all weekend long. Bobby will talk about it tomorrow. The things Jan talked about, Mikey, Corinne, all weekend long. The incredible lives we get by coming to this program and doing a few simple things. If we haven't been given enough, and we've been given much, haven't we? We've been given much. If that wasn't enough, you and I are then given the ability to change people's lives. That's not an ego statement. That is a statement of gratitude. That is a statement of humility. You and I, when armed with facts about ourselves, that's what this process does. That is what we're doing through this process, is arming ourselves with arms of facts about ourselves, so then we can go out and be of maximum service. And when we have that, you and I are able to make the difference in a few short hours when nobody else was able to. And until such an understanding happens, little or nothing can be done for the alcoholic. We've been richly blessed. We're richly blessed. It says in Alcoholics Anonymous that we laugh at sometimes seemingly tragic situations. Him with a pig. You ever sometimes wonder what visitors think of us? I don't know if you do this here, but at home when we celebrate our birthday, your 5-year, your 10-year birthday, you get to pick the speaker and the players in the meetings and stuff. Some family come, maybe some friends from work. Never been to AA before, don't know anything about AA. Some monkey like me gets up here and says things like, yes, I bought a brand new Cadillac. I picked it up at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning and totaled it at 10. Laugh. Told my wife I was going out for a loaf of bread. Ended up in Alaska. Came home 18 months later. My buddy Doug from California talks about spilling a bottle of whiskey in his bed and then sucking it out of the sheets. Ho, 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 ho. Laugh, laugh. Huh. You ever wonder what those visitors might be thinking? Says we laugh at sometimes seemingly tragic situations. You know what it says after that? Of course you do. Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? Because we've recovered. We've recovered and been given the power to help others. God's power, not my power. My life before coming to Alcoholics Anonymous had absolutely no meaning or no purpose whatsoever. None. I don't know what your life was like. It's none of my business. But none. I was either drunk, planning on getting drunk, recovering from being drunk, in trouble, trying to get out of trouble, planning on more trouble. My life focus. I work all week so I can drink all weekend. I get money to drink. I deal so I can do. And all the people in my life are the same. Alkies don't hang out with social drinkers. No meaning, no purpose to my life. I go to a detox at home every Monday for 20 some odd years. Not because I'm some saint. It's the way I've been taught. I'm the product of strong sponsorship. And I believe in strong sponsorship. And I believe that without strong sponsorship, our chances of recovery are almost nil. That's what I believe. I believe that. So anyway, I go there. I'll be there Monday, 2 o'clock. I go every Monday. And I like to go Sundays if I'm in town. We have a big speaker meeting every Sunday morning, a couple hundred people. I like to take new people to speaker meetings so they can listen. I know it's not that fashionable today, but I happen to think it's good for new people to listen. So anyway, I go there one day, and there's a guy in there, and he's in bad shape. I'm not talking hungover, detoxing. I'm talking physically bad. But I thought, this guy, he might die. He might not make it. Well, I figured to myself, he could die at the meeting as easy as he can die here. Dying's dying. You got to do it somewhere, so let's go. So we went to the meeting. After the meeting, we spent a couple hours together talking about this design for living that we have, this practical program action. And I left him. I never saw him again. I'm sitting in a meeting one day. I see some guy coming across the hall. I could see he's headed for me. Clean-cut looking guy, though, had a shirt, pair of slacks on. Come walking over, he said, Butch, he said, you probably don't remember me. I said, I'm sorry, I can't say that I do, but I meet a lot of people. He says, my name's Ziggy. I said, holy smokes. That's not really what I said. That's what I'm saying here. After that tirade. He said, you remember me? I said, oh, I remember you, and it's the guy, and he's looking good. He said, Butch, I just wanted to come and thank you for taking me to that meeting that morning. He said, I haven't had a drink since that day. It's almost been a year. I said, congratulations. He said, I was wondering if I can ask a favor of you. I said, if I can do it, I will. He said, will you come and talk at my 1-year AA birthday? I said, I'd be honored to do that, Ziggy. I went and talked to the group a handful of years ago. I got up to a big meeting, not as big as this, but a big meeting. And I started to cry, Bobby. I couldn't get going. I was crying. And I'll tell you why. I looked out, and there, sitting at the front table, in a suit and tie, looking like $1 million, with his wife and all his children, was Ziggy. And he was getting his 15-year medallion. Took him to his first meeting, talked at his 1 year, talked at his 5 year, talked at his 10 year, talked at his 15 year. You know where I was last year? Ziggy's 20. You think my life doesn't have meaning? You think my life doesn't have purpose? My life is so rich. My life is so full. I could stand up here for the next 2 hours. I'd be all alone, but I could do it. I could do it. I'm going to share 2 stories with you. I'm going to get out of here. What you've done for me. That little Dee that's home praying for me, I love that girl as much as my own life, more. We live a life beyond anything I've ever dreamt possible. I didn't do so good in that department when I was drinking and even in early sobriety, but I just love her as a love I never knew existed, like you guys have. I watch it. I watch it. I watch it. You and your guy, I watch it. Huh? And anyway, I like watching the golf on TV. Stuart likes to play it. I like to watch it. And it's easier. And it's easier. Not as much time. And so anyway, I love watching Sundays. I love watching Sundays. And I love if the guy in the final pairing is leading, you know. And I was watching the Masters one time. And Phil Mickelson was leading, and he was coming up the 18th fairway, and he was winning. He would won the tournament. And he was walking up there, and his wife at the time had cancer, had breast cancer. And he was walking up that fairway, and the cameras were on him. And you could tell his eyes were full of tears. And it was taking everything he had to hold it together to make it up to that 18th green. And they flashed to his wife, Amy, and their 2 little daughters, and the tears were running down her face. And I'm crying. And I turned to Dee, and I looked at Dee, and I said, Dee, I said, can you imagine how proud she must be of him? And my wife turned and looked at me and said, I know exactly how she feels. I feel that way every time I see you stand at the front of one of those rooms. She said, Butch, that's a game. It's a wonderful game, but it's a game. We get to be a part of people's lives. Huh? Everything in my life is good because of you. I want to just share this last thing for the folks that are new here tonight. Wally, his first day, and the people in their first year. See, I remember like it was yesterday. I remember walking in here like it was yesterday, full of shame and guilt and fear and all that stuff, with very little hope. And I understand that you come here and you see nice people get up here all weekend that have been sober 20 and 30 and all of these years and dressed nice and living wonderful lives. And I know that seems a long way for you. I know you sit there and think that's good for you, but I'll never have that. We don't come here to wear false faces. We don't come here to tell you our lives are perfect. We come here to share hope with you. The things that we talk about here are ideals that we strive towards. Some days we fall short, but we have our struggles as well. Our 5-year-old granddaughter was diagnosed with leukemia 2.5 years ago. And she went into Children's Hospital and spent 5 months in Children's Hospital having chemotherapy, and it worked. And she came home that March, cancer-free. And 6 months later, the cancer came back. And the doctor said she has to have the strongest radiation, the strongest chemotherapy, and a bone marrow transplant. She has 30% chance to live. She spent 5 more months in there. We didn't have a perfect match for the bone marrow, and they did a stem cell transplant. And it was hugely, because it's fairly new, and it was hugely successful, Bobby. The doctors were amazed at how well it worked. And our granddaughter came home on that last March, cancer-free. And on June 24th, the cancer came back. And they said there's no more treatment. There's nothing more we can do. And on November 2nd, we buried our 7-year-old granddaughter. And that is a horrible thing. That is a horrible thing. There's a thing in the 12 and 12, in step 11, that talks about self-examination, prayer, and meditation. When taken individually, produce a positive result. But when logically interwoven, form an unshakable foundation for life. You see, we have an unshakable foundation for life. Our son-in-law is a high school teacher. And when Sarah got that cancer and that, he went to his school and he started a bone marrow drive and a blood drive. And all the kids from the school came, and young people were the best ones for bone marrow swabs. And the whole school came. They had never had anything like that. And the Toronto television and newspaper got wind of this, and they started to put it in the front page of the Toronto Star and on the TV. And all the other schools got involved in it. They had more bone marrow donations and blood donations than they've ever had in their history. And a few weeks ago, the Cancer Society came to our family and said they want to use Sarah as their person on their stuff. And since that time, there's been 6 children who've had successful bone marrow transplants and are cancer-free because of our granddaughter. You see, I know that God spins everything into gold. Spins everything into gold. There's a line in the book that says that we lose the fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter. That infers to me that there is a hereafter. And I don't know what it looks like, but I know this. I know that it is a beautiful place. And I know that our Sarah is in that beautiful place and watches over us. Everything in my life is good. Everything in my life is good. I don't share that I share that with those new folks to know that we can go through anything here. I want to thank Bubba and the committee and the conference for the invitation and your kindness and patience in listening to me tonight. You know, I don't know what's going to happen from here on in, and none of us know for sure, do we? No, huh? Just because we get sober, become members of Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon, life doesn't stop happening. People die. Relationships end. Businesses fail. People get sick. Life still goes on. But I'll tell you something. Every single morning, including this morning, first thing I do is I say to my friend upstairs, I say, I sure would appreciate it if you see fit to keep me in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because, my dear friends, there's no place in this whole world I'd rather be than right here with you fine, fine people. Thank you, and God bless you.